Hello again, this is the News Hour from Al Jazeera. Adrian Finnegan here in Doha. There's been a large explosion in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, within the last hour. Let's show you some latest pictures. It's clear that there was a massive explosion. As you can see, we're not quite sure yet as to what has caused this explosion, but if you can see the pictures of the neighborhood now in which this explosion happened, you can see that it's caused widespread damage. We have no information yet as to how many casualties there might have been. It's clear, though, that something has caused a very large explosion in Lebanon's capital within the last hour. Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodda is in Beirut and is on the line for us now. Zaina, you must have heard this explosion.
Not only heard it, Adrian, felt it. It shook the Lebanese capital. I have reported from this city for years, but never felt such a massive explosion. First, there was a thud, and then a gust of wind. Glass everywhere destroyed. I am seeing ambulances carrying wounded, rushing to the hospital. There's chaos in the streets. It's still not clear the cause of this explosion. Some reports are suggesting that it happened at Beirut port. It is still not clear, like I told you, but I was kilometers away. The glass broke everywhere around me. And as you can imagine, this is a city which is used to explosions, assassinations, but it has been a while since the last, well, it's too early to say bombing because some reports are suggesting that there was a depot that exploded at Beirut port. Like I mentioned, it's still not clear what exactly shook the Lebanese capital. But as you can imagine, people are worried. Phone lines are jammed. People are trying to reach their relatives, calling family members to make sure that they're okay. So this is all I can tell you at this moment, Adrian. Zaina, a massive explosion.
You obviously aren't able to see the pictures we're showing right now, but we have pictures taken from the water near to the port area, and it's clear that there is a very large explosion right on the coast there. Where in the city, Zaina, are you right now?
Not very far from the port, Adrian, at this point in time. Some roads are blocked, so it's very, very difficult to move around. The security forces are directing traffic towards one area. As you can imagine, there's a lot of chaos. I saw the plume of smoke, massive, like I mentioned, a massive explosion. We're still trying to confirm exactly what happened. At the beginning, just a few minutes after the explosion, as you can imagine, there were reports saying that it was close to the house of the former Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri, and then reports emerged that no, that is not true. I'm in fact standing outside his residence, and nothing happened here. So it is still too early for us to confirm, but this is really a country that is drowning. An economic crisis, a political crisis, a currency crisis. So people are already on the edge. And that is why many are just concerned what exactly happened. Like you mentioned, it's close to the sea. It's close to Beirut port. We are still trying to confirm exactly what happened and what caused this massive explosion.
The pictures that we're showing show a thick plume of black smoke rising over the port, and then what appears to be a blast wave. So maybe there was a fire first before the explosion. Tell us something, Zaina, of the port itself.
Yes, Adrian, sorry, I didn't hear you very well. The cars are honking. Like I told you, there's panic in the streets. Everybody's trying to get home. Glass everywhere. So I could imagine the injuries just as a result of the broken glass. I was close to the American University Hospital, and that's in the heart of Beirut. And glass was falling from the 7th floor, from the 6th floor. People were trying to find cover. So there is still chaos. People are trying to get to their homes. It was the first day after a 5-day lockdown was lifted. As the authorities had imposed a 5-day lockdown to try to curb the increase in the number of coronavirus cases. So this country is really tackling with many many crises, a health crisis, a currency crisis, an economic crisis, a financial crisis. And now, with this bombing, you can imagine how concerned people are. But again, we don't want to jump into conclusions. I do not want to call this an attack. I do not want to call this an assassination attempt. Right now, all we know, a massive explosion shook the heart of the Lebanese capital just a few minutes ago. Everyone trying to reach home, everyone concerned that this could be, if indeed it was an attack, and I repeat, we still have no confirmation. If indeed this was an attack, it could be the start of even more instability for a country really that hasn't seen stability for decades.
This explosion was clearly big enough to cause a blast wave, which has, from the pictures we're seeing here, caused significant damage several kilometers away. There are cars that have been blown upside down, or what they appear to have been hit by something which has thrown them into the air. Buildings damaged several kilometers away in the city itself. It looks as though this explosion, as you say, was at the port. Zaina, I don't know whether you can hear me, but I just wanted you to tell me a little about the port itself in Beirut.
Yes, Adrian, the force of the explosion was felt across the city. Their initial report is suggesting that explosion was in the port. And I can tell you, we are approximately 5-6 kilometers away from the port, and the whole building, our whole office, the building where our office is located, the glass is in the street. So it is still not clear what exactly happened. We are trying to make calls to figure out what exactly happened, but the damage, kilometers and kilometers away, and it was the force of the explosion. I was walking in the street and I was thrown to the ground, and I'm telling you, I'm not close to the port. I wasn't close to the port. So, Adrian, until we get more confirmation, I cannot say whether or not this has been an attack or whether it was some sort of accident.
Yeah, it appears from looking at this, the fact that it happened at the port, that this may have been an industrial accident, something that has gone terribly, terribly wrong at the port itself, that has caused this clearly massive explosion. And you said you felt this blast wave, which appears from the pictures we're seeing here, Zaina, to have caused so much damage right throughout the city. You felt it yourself?
Yes, I did, Adrian. Massive explosion, the force of the explosion. You mentioned an industrial accident. We cannot rule that out. We have to stress this time and time again. We cannot rule that out for the time being until we confirm exactly what happened, until we manage to reach the site of this explosion. But if you tell any Lebanese now that this was an accident, it will not calm their nerves, because the Lebanese people have been on edge for some time now. I talked about an economic crisis, a state close to bankruptcy, a currency that has devalued more than 80% in the past few months, inflation, soaring food prices, a surge in coronavirus cases, the healthcare system close to collapse. So people are dealing with all these problems, and then they feel an explosion that rocks their capital. And this is a country that has seen massive explosions. I'm not linking this explosion to anything, but just let me tell you, in 2 days' time, by the end of this week, Lebanon was expected to hear from the International Tribunal, which has been investigating the case of the assassination of the former Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri. That was back in 2005, and that explosion was just as massive as this one. And that explosion was a political earthquake. The whole, not just the capital, the whole country shook following his killing. 3 days from today, the verdict is going to be issued. It will be the first time in Lebanon's history that an assassination or a political killing is investigated, and murderers are uncovered and at least attempt to bring them to justice. So you already have all these this political atmosphere in the country. Plus, then you hear this massive explosion. So could you imagine what is going through the mind of every Lebanese now as they try to confirm exactly what happened? So we cannot say whether or not this is an explosion, whether it's an attack, or whether it is an industrial accident.
We're seeing pictures which show clearly signs of absolute devastation at the port area. These pictures appear to be the site of the explosion itself. There you see that massive blast wave heading out across the capital, Beirut. Firefighters, can we go back to those pictures at the scene of the explosion?
We don't know.
There it is again. Firefighters tackling what remains of the fire there after the explosion. Mangled buildings in the port area, cranes still standing despite that blast. But that roadside close to the port area where we saw cars that have been overturned, people lying injured and bloodied on the side of the road, people standing around, as you can see there, stunned after what has happened there at the port in Beirut. And Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodda is making her way to this site right now, and she's on foot, listening to us on phone. Where are you now, Zaina? How far away from the port area are you? Zaina, I don't know if you can hear me. How close now are you to the port area? No, we appear to have, the line has dropped for the moment. I will come back to Zaina as soon as we can. So what do we know? Within the last 30, 40 minutes or so, reports began to come in of a huge explosion in Beirut, the Lebanese capital. When the first pictures started to come in, I mean, they're unbelievable, what you're seeing right now. Mangled buildings, cars. It appears that this explosion happened in the port area in Beirut. We have no idea yet as to what caused this. As Zaina Hodda was saying to us earlier, this is a city that's used to explosions and attacks, but this was on a scale rarely seen in that city. A massive explosion there, and we simply don't know the cause of it yet. We don't know yet either how many people were caught up in this explosion, whether there have been deaths. There have certainly been injuries. As Zaina was saying, that massive blast wave that we saw from those initial pictures showered the city in shards of glass and damaged buildings. It almost looks as though there's been an earthquake in some parts of the city itself, further away from the blast. We're seeing pictures of injured people lying on the road, near the road, pictures of upturned cars there on that road passing the port there, where cars have clearly either been involved in traffic accidents as drivers were distracted by the blast, or have been blown over by that massive blast wave that we saw on the pictures. We're trying to re-establish contact with Zaina Hodda, and we're trying to talk to other people, trying to get hold of other people in the city who can give us their their experiences of what happened in the last hour in Beirut. So if you've just joined us, this is excuse me, I'm just going to clear my throat. This is Al Jazeera, live pictures from Lebanon's capital, Beirut, where within the last hour there has been quite clearly a massive explosion. The site of the explosion reported to be, well, you can see it from the screen, the port area in the city. A massive blast wave has damaged buildings, mangled buildings. A fire is still raging. Firefighters tackling that blaze. That blast wave has damaged buildings kilometers away in the city itself, has showered the city with shards of glass, blown out windows for kilometers around. And as yet, we have no indication as to the number of deaths or injuries, but it's clear that after something like that, on that scale, that there will be casualties. The emergency service is trying to deal with clearly a massive explosion like that are going to be overwhelmed, as our correspondent was telling us, that even though Beirut is almost used to explosions over the years, rarely has it seen anything on this scale. So this appears to be the seat of the explosion, which happened within the last hour. Our correspondent Zaina Hodder is making her way to the site of that explosion, and we'll, as soon as we've re-established contact with her, we'll talk to her some more about her experiences. Those pictures we were showing you a few moments ago of the fire, the seat of the fire, the seat of the explosion. Apparently there are people trapped under that rubble, which is what the emergency services are doing. They're trying to work, trying to get those people free. Zaina's back on the line. Zaina, where are you now?
Yes, lines are patchy, as you can imagine, Adrian. Everyone is using their phones. Network is jammed. Everyone concerned about their loved ones, trying to find exactly what happened, what shook the Lebanese capital just under an hour ago. We are still trying to get confirmation. What we understand for the time being, some sort of an explosion at Beirut port. Beirut port is located really in the heart of the Lebanese capital. We still do not have confirmation on casualties and injuries. As you can imagine, there's chaos. It's very difficult to move. Some roads are blocked, and then there's traffic congestion in some areas. There's panic in the streets, glass everywhere. The force of the force of the explosion was massive. The wind, people were initially, everyone, what came to their minds is that this is another assassination. Lebanon, for many years, was rocked by a string of assassinations, political killings. But it has been a while. It has been quiet for some time now. But again, there's no confirmation. Some reports are suggesting that this is some sort of an accident at Beirut port, maybe a fuel depot. Some reports also suggesting fireworks. Nothing that we can confirm at the time being. All I can tell you is what is going on in the streets. And all I can say is chaos, fear. Nobody knows what happened. Damage kilometers and kilometers away. I could imagine how many people were sitting in their homes when the blast shook their apartments and glass broke everywhere. So there is concern, but there's still no confirmation, Adrian, on what caused this explosion.
It's clear that there will be multiple injuries after something like this, Zaina. The city's emergency services working tirelessly as we speak. Yeah. Given this is happening in the middle of a pandemic, will the hospitals in the city be able to cope?
This is a very good question, because the healthcare system is already collapsing. This is a country in deep economic crisis, financial crisis, a currency crisis. Private hospitals are owed billions of dollars by the Lebanese government, a government that is cash-strapped and bankrupt. So private hospitals have begun to turn away patients for some time now. And public hospitals are underfunded. And they have been raising the alarm that they can no longer cope with the rise in coronavirus cases. So there are many, many crises in Lebanon at this point in time. A bombing, a political assassination will definitely not bode well for the stability. But as we have to stress time and time again, we still do not know the cause of this massive blast. We are still trying to confirm and trying to reach the site of the explosion. This is, we're finding difficulties reaching. Some roads have been blocked, and as you can imagine, traffic congestion just to be able to move from one area to another.
Zainab, we were looking at pictures. We're still on. The pictures are coming from the road which runs adjacent to the port there in Beirut. Scenes of complete chaos. Mangled, it looks like warehouse buildings at the port there. Cranes blown askance. Many people standing on the roadside there, completely bewildered. They're taking photographs of something there on the opposite side of the road to the explosion. Not sure what that is, but we're also seeing pictures of cars that have clearly either been involved in traffic accidents immediately after the blast. Oh, it's that building there which has been completely blown out, as you can see, by the force of that blast from the port, which is just opposite. The cars that have been either involved in traffic accidents, by, as drivers were distracted by the explosion right next to them, or have been blown over by that massive blast wave. Let's speak to reporter Anshul Vora, who is also in Beirut. Your house, Anshul, I understand, was damaged by the blast.
That's correct. About half an hour, 40 minutes ago, we were just watching a show on Netflix, taking a break from work, and I heard a jet hovering in the sky. And because this has been happening for some time, I opened the window, glass door, and looked outside, and the entire building shook, and I was blown by it. My entire house has been bombed. Everything is being bombed. I'm bleeding on my neck. I think it's glass on my neck and my ankle. I wouldn't say I'm seriously injured, but a lot of people around me on the street where I live in, which is called Jazeera, a Christian-dominated area, a lot of people are bleeding. There's absolute chaos here. People cannot understand how to react to this situation. This country's already been grappling with so much. Earlier in the day, I was filing a story on how the price of bread has doubled. But how are these people going to deal with the situation now? My entire neighborhood has been bombed. Thankfully, my neighbor is okay. I don't know if there are any casualties yet or not, because I'm right under my house. But my entire house was blown apart. There's nothing that I could actually pick up from there other than my phone. Luckily, I found my phone and I found my passport. My husband is with me. We're on the street right now, also on the job, trying to film, trying to talk to people and understand what's happened. Other journalists now collecting at the same spot. We're outside the Red Cross. A lot of people trying to go in. I haven't yet managed to get to the building of Red Cross. I don't know whether it's been bombed or not, but a lot of the buildings here have been bombed. Just people around me bleeding everywhere. Complete chaos. I mean, one doesn't want to sort of talk about who's done this yet, but deaths have been hovering above these skies for the last 2 months now. So complete chaos. Many were anticipating this, but it's just such a heartbreaking moment. Personally, but also as somebody who lives in Lebanon, for me, I can associate with the Lebanese people. These people have been going through such a hard time. And now this, I mean, one just, does not have words how to describe this situation that we're in.
Anshul, it's clear that from what you were saying, you've been injured by flying glass there, and you're bleeding. Are you getting treatment for that? Are you able to get medical assistance?
No medical assistant. I don't see Red Cross. I see one Red Cross nurse running around in a parking lot trying to help an elderly lady. But as I said, I don't know if I can get to the Red Cross building, and it's very close to my house. And because I'm limping, as I said, my ankle is bleeding, I haven't managed to get there yet. And it's complete chaos because all the cars on the streets, people are rushing to pick up the wounded. Lots of old people. I see at least 4 or 5 now. I see 2 more Red Cross nurses, Red Cross workers now. Some young people trying to help others around. It's just complete chaos. Cars have been bombed, houses have been bombed. This is a really posh area in Lebanon. One would think that this is an area which would not be bombed by the southern neighbors, because it's Christian-dominated, and people here have generally felt very safe in that regard. But this is the first one to go through this, the situation here today.
Anshul, I don't know whether you're aware yet. Obviously, I think you're in a state of shock. But there's been the explosion was at the port in Beirut. How far away from the port is your neighbourhood?
Well, we're about I think we're about 30 minutes away from it. But the fact that that's been bombed as well, as you're saying, we did hear, my husband is German and he's a journalist as well, and he just got a message from the German embassy that in fact had happened. And if that happened too, then this makes the situation much, much severe. I mean, this sort of an event. I mean, I really can't even get into the politics of it all, to be honest, because I have people bleeding in front of me. An old man, I reckon, would be 60 plus, is bleeding. He's lying on a stretcher now. A Red Cross worker is dealing with him, is trying to address to his wounds. There's a really old lady on my right. She's being taken care of. She's being taken care of by some people around me, some young people. I mean, it's just an absolute nightmare. You know, we've all read about these things happening in Lebanon, but that it would actually happen. You know, this is after 15 years, right? After the 2006 war, that this would actually happen. No one believed that. One thought that somehow peace would be maintained.
Listen,
somehow Lebanon is not going to go in this direction. It was already dealing with so much, but here we are. Young people have, of course, been hit as well. A young lady is sitting on what would have been a window once, and this is the parking lot right in front of my house. The parking lot right in front of my house, just like about 100 meters away from Red Cross, a very posh area. Markets had opened up after lockdown was lifted, and another nurse from Red Cross has just come to this parking lot with some bandages, trying to cater to people who've been injured. Hopefully, I'll get some first aid as well.
Anshal,
so it's a really dire situation here.
Anshal, look, we'll let you go and get that ankle treated and that bleeding stemmed. Look, take care of yourself, and we'll give you a few minutes to gather your wits again, and we'll come back to you. Many thanks indeed. That's reporter Anshal Vora there, who was at home watching TV when that blast hit. Her neighborhood, a couple of kilometers away from the port area in Beirut, when that explosion blew out all the glass in the windows of the homes in her neighborhood. Anshal's neighbors, like her, injured by flying glass. She's got her ankle, she said, was bleeding. And she's clearly, I mean, you can hear it in her voice when she's talking, in a complete state of shock there. We'll let Anshal go and get the treatment she needs. She said there's a Red Cross first aid worker there treating people in her neighborhood.